Yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
I took a couple notes before this, things we could possibly talk about. What were you thinking about?
I was just gonna flow with it, man. Let's see what some of the topics you got. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to start with. I love how we're doing a talk today, right? Today is April 11th, so it's 4/11,
Oh
2020.
yeah,
So a little,
information.
yeah, a little synchronicity right there. Information for the clear vision. So I thought
Nice.
that was kind of cool. So
Right on.
a little
Love it.
intro bite.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
one thing I've thought about a lot is I've thought a lot about calling into the Passio show over the last year when ever since he got going again. And what I wanted to talk about with people is, sort of the tricky process of going from that point of realizing some of these difficult truths to the point where you can talk about it with some confidence and actually do what Mark's saying and become a teacher, which is I'm trying to make that transition, but it's been a hard, long journey and battle to get to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And it's taken me between 3 and 4 years, really, to really things to settle in and do enough studying and reading and listening to the information to the point where I can talk about it and feel like I can make a point,
Yeah.
without getting. And some of the things that I think people deal with is at first you're having your own personal emotional response. Like for me, growing up in school and stuff, I was like super mad at authority for years, and I didn't understand why.
Yeah.
And now that now that I'm older and I understand the idea of anarchy and that or authority is a religious belief, basically, I see the ridiculousness of it, and I understand where all that emotion comes from. But still, when I start talking about it, that anger starts coming up in me. And I'm not saying anger's bad; anger's good. Anger can be good, like Mark points out, but it does throw people off. And
Mm.
and as soon as they hear that little bit of emotion, they're like, they don't want to hear anything more you got to say, and they're like, oh, you're a crazy person.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
really hurt for me because I was trying to talk to people I trusted and loved, and it just felt like I was getting rejected a lot. And so I had to go through this whole self ego, dealing with my own uh, depression and loneliness about it, and I bet a lot of people that might watch this video are going through that in various stages. So I
Oh,
wanted to address that.
absolutely. That's like the blackening, right? That's that process of breaking down, and then you can recombine, right? That's part of the alchemical process. And I think we all go through it. It's a very important process. I can totally relate to what you're saying. And the emotion, people are scared of emotion, especially truthful and honest and bold emotion. Everyone doesn't want to, they don't want to look at the negative. They just want happy go lucky feelings and stuff. So the subconscious will put up its fight against that. And
Defenses, basically, right?
exactly, yeah, and people close up. And I know I personally had, and I still am, it's a work in progress, dealing with um kind of uh the anger for the current condition and people's ignorance
Hmm.
really gets to me at times. And but I can look back on the beginning of this journey and be proud of where I'm at now.
Right.
So that's good. But um I saw some people talking about teaching natural law, and they were saying, well, I live it, so I'm teaching it. And I kind of want to make a distinction. Living natural law, being in harmony with natural law is a prerequisite. Like, once you get to that stage, you are in harmony with natural law, and that process will continue. But teaching it is something totally different. Be the change you want to see in the world for your children and for other people, but actually going out in public and teaching the information is a completely different set of situation. So
And
for
also, it's easy to say that I live it, but there's so many things we do, just being part of the society, that are making us complicit to the evil that's going on. Just driving a car is not a good thing. It's dangerous to animals and plants. It's not good for the environment. Where does this gas come from? It's part of that whole oil and gas, energy paradigm thing.
Hmm.
And every time we buy a gallon of gas, we're feeding into that. Every time we buy these products, we're feeding into that. So who's going to say you're not, doing anything to contribute to the evil in the world? We all are. You can't
Oh,
just
for
jump out
sure.
of it. And that was part of my hard realization, is there's still a lot of things I'm doing and part of that I don't want to be part of, you know, but you
Yeah.
can't just get out all at once. I built up my life 44 years to get to this point, and until I was like 39, I didn't realize a lot of these things. I
Oh,
didn't even
yeah.
know what anarchy was when I was 35.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that helps me see the other side for other people too. Like, I didn't realize it until I realized it. And there's some people I've talked to, and maybe I've planted some seeds in conversations, and maybe 2 or 3 years from now they might be like, oh, okay. Maybe in their process it hits later. Who am I
Yeah.
to judge where they're at in their process right now? you know um and plus, the other thing is, like Mark points out, like, we tend to think, oh, just talking to people at work or talking to people that are my best friend or my family members, I'm doing the work. No, that's not it, because that's not the same. you know it's something different to when you go through the process of writing things down and creating your own outline, and fucking it up, over and over. Excuse my language. um by the way, are we okay to swear on this?
Fucking A, man.
Cool, because
Absolutely. For
I'm
sure.
I'm like a pirate. I'm a construction worker, so
Same with me,
that's how
man.
we
Yeah. Let it
that's
flow.
how we
Let it
talk.
flow, brother. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a whole nother thing to get out there, and we have a responsibility, once we understand these things, to take it to that next level. Is what I think that's a really good point to make right now, especially right now.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. Responsibility. I remember in the beginning stages, I was constantly looking for truth and information and knowledge. And once you come across natural law and your perception aligns to what's really going on with truth, then you're sucked in automatically. You have that obligation and that responsibility to start working on yourself and start um, fixing this condition as much as you can. And this is a great opportunity with all the shit that's going on right now. It's an opportunity to start talking about this kind of information and getting out there and putting in that work. So, doing
Right.
conversations like that is part of this is part of the great work. And you're doing videos, great videos. That's awesome, man. So I got to tip my hat to you.
Thanks, man. It's been hard, to get, and I'm feeling good about what's happening with those. I'm getting good responses. And so my plan is to go on, and turn it into a podcast, and maybe even after that, compile all that work into a book, you know.
Yeah, there
And
you go.
so I have a kind of a three-pronged plan I'm working on, but it's taken me a long time to get to this point. I remember talking to my sister like half a year ago. We talk every week, and being so frustrated with this process of trying to make a video. I'd get real deep into it, and then I'd realize it's totally foobar. I got to start
Yeah,
over from the
yeah,
beginning and basically trash everything I did. This is not it. This sucks. And I've had to do that like 4 times, 5 times before I got to these videos that I'm sharing now with you.
yeah. That's how you get better, right? That's the process.
Got to make
And
the mistakes, and you got to get out there and do it. It's it's just like the work I do in construction. Like, it's you against this piece of wood or this piece of stone, and all it has to do is just sit there and be itself. But you have to, like, put the initiative and the effort, in the hot sun, to get this piece of wood or this piece of rock where you want it.
yeah,
It's not easy.
absolutely. That's why the shadow work is so important, right? When you first kind of awaken, you have to do that shadow work. That's like the first step. And the transmutation of that is so important. Especially it's going to outsource in the work that you're going to do. And the possibilities are endless on what type of work that you want to output: books, music, art, video. There's I think honing in on your attributes, what you love doing, and utilize that with teaching the knowledge.
Yeah, I would say that's even worth it for, like, if someone listening right now, like, you make a list. What are your, what are the things I'm really good at on one side? And what are the things I'm not so good at? And start with the things you're really freaking good at, and how can I incorporate that into this,
Yeah, not everybody has to have a podcast, it might not be
Right.
someone's thing. But I did music for 15 years, so took a big break, went through a huge transition, and definitely not going to do the style of music that I did then.
Right.
It was very ego driven, it's hip hop and that's fine. That genre is good, but what I was talking about, my message overall was not. I'm not that person anymore. That level of consciousness is dead and gone. But still love doing music and might have to do some Natty Law tracks.
Yeah, I mean, look at there's my one favorite track that gives me the chills right now is from Atmosphere, where
Okay.
Slug says, "You ain't a real lion if you love the circus." And I actually made a slide of that, which I think I'm going to use eventually,
Yeah,
and
excellent.
you look at like a lot of things they're saying in some of these in some of these groups, hieroglyphics and living legends, and they're talking about some good stuff. And these are intellectual people that are trying to make some points,
Yeah.
and it can be done. It totally can be done. There's a lot of groups out there that are doing it in different ways, pointing out things that people don't know about, and you might be like, "Huh, what do you say about chemtrails? That's weird," you know?
Yeah, and that's the point, right? Getting the message out and dropping those seeds consistently. And
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately, the person has to have the willpower and the desire to change. So dropping seeds is crucial. You got to drop as many as you can. The more voices that are, putting out the message, the better. And, it's all about numbers. So it's good to get teachers out there talking about this. I'm freshly starting out, but, I'm happy that people have been jumping on these conversations with me and stuff, man. Get some good
Oh, it's
energy flowing.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
that it's inspired me. It just kind of like it was weird. It was like a brainstorm to me because I had basically said I'm never going back on Facebook.
Yeah,
That place is like bad energy for me.
for
But it
sure.
occurred to me like, wait a second, there might be people there that understand Mark Passio's work, you know, and maybe I can find some help there or some people to bounce things off of. And that's how I met you, just recently. It was like, oh yeah, great idea, but you got to go knocking on the doors for them to open, and I'm still
Oh,
not
for
going to
sure.
hang out on there. I don't like the place, but it doesn't mean I can't use it from time to time to make this thing happen,
Yeah, they're tools, right?
Right. Right.
Once you're secure within yourself, you can utilize those tools for a benefit. Um, you
Right.
know, all about control it. Having self control
Right.
and discipline for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I own a nail gun. I can shoot nails, but I don't shoot them into people. I shoot them into wood, you know.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. That's awesome.
the more you practice, the better you get at it, right?
Oh, for sure, man. No
And
doubt.
and I think part of it too. The other thing is the physical aspect. Like if you're not ready to start spreading this stuff, there's a lot that can be done on self discipline. And I've even been thinking lately of different way of using the word religion. Ray Lugare, to bind. Well, that's bad in the exterior, in the outside world, people trying to bind you, but binding yourself, your own personal religion, is maybe a good thing. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but
Yeah.
the point is self-discipline. I had to work a lot to get myself in enough physical shape where I'm in a good state of mind most of the time, and somebody can challenge me with something I'm saying, and I don't like lose it mentally and get all emotional. I can keep my composure because my body's in good shape and I'm not all beat down.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that takes a lot of work too.
Oh, for sure, man. That's definitely a process. That's what a lot of the mystery traditions. Um, the first stage is mastering the mental, right? And then the emotions. I might have that wrong. I think the first is the physical, and then the mental, and then the emotional.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So, but the physical plays a
Well,
huge.
they're all tied together for sure, right?
They're all tied together. Absolutely. Yeah, and they're all going to work at the same time. But baby steps. It's like I was telling my younger brother. He was like, he's so overwhelmed by all the work he has to do, like the shadow work and the physical aspects and stuff. And I'm like, dude, it's a stepwise process. So
For
starting
sure.
it is the hardest part, and then just start getting stuff off the list.
I got a piece of advice about that actually. When I first made this, I was having a lot of back problems, like my neck. I was getting this thing pretty often. Sometimes it felt like there was a spear, just sticking through my chest. It hurt so much. I thought something was wrong. But I talked to a friend, and he told me he fixed a back problem just by doing push-ups and sit-ups every morning. And it occurred to me, like, I need to form a habit, because I was
Absolutely.
reading one of those books of these modern guys who are telling you how to change yourself. Um, and one thing they said was, if you form a habit, if you do something for over 2 weeks, I don't know, they have a specific number of days, 18 days, whatever it is. If you do the same thing every day for 2 or 3 weeks, it's almost hard to break that habit at that point.
Yeah.
And so what I started off was just doing 7 push-ups every day, because 7 push-ups for me is pretty simple. I'm really lightweight, you know, and I could do that without any sweat. It was just super easy. Maybe for some people that'd be 3 push-ups or 2 squats, but just do it every freaking day, every morning at the same time. And then you can start building up, pretty soon I was doing 25, 50, I can do lots of push-ups now every morning,
Yeah,
because
for
I've
sure.
been doing it for like 3 years, and
Absolutely.
so you have to set up your own habits and and set up yourself some kind of discipline. No one's going to do it for you.
Yeah. That's that's the ritual aspect, it's definitely, you have to set up, you got to switch out those negative habits with positive habits.
And little by little, like you said, one step at a time. Don't try to,
Yeah.
if you try to say, oh, I'm going to start working out, this is what people always do. I'm going to start working out, or I'm going to go on this diet, and just dive in. And you work out so hard that day that you're so freaking sore for the next 2, 3 days, or you pull your, bone that always
Exactly.
hurts. And then next thing you know, like, oh, now I can't work out because it hurts,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
gotta be, and it's the same thing with teaching this natural law thing. You can't just go in whole hog. I kind of did that the first time I made a podcast. I felt like I failed. I mean, it wasn't a failure. A lot of good things happened, but it did hurt me
Mm.
emotionally because I tried to just put it all out there, and then I got really upset, my ego, that it wasn't getting accepted the way I'd hoped, and it wasn't spreading the way I hoped, and
Yeah,
everybody wasn't listening that I hoped would listen.
I can relate to that. Yeah, same boat with me. I'm pretty passionate, so as soon as it was clicking, man, it was, light bulb went off, and absolutely I put myself out there, and excuse me, um didn't get the reception that I hoped. So kind of
You're
take
not
some
gonna,
steps back.
on this stuff,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
for
I wish
sure.
someone had been there to tell me, like it's gonna be hard, man. You gotta have a strategy, you gotta have a game plan. And so the second time or the third time you go about it, you come at it with a little bit different plan, like a boxing fight. You're like, I'm not gonna try to knock this guy out in the first round. I'm gonna try to just get a couple jabs in. And
Yeah.
and my knockout punch is gonna be in round three.
Well, failure's good, right? Because then you know what not to do.
Right, right.
So yeah, it's, shields up, swords out. So it's good.
Dodge, dodge those
The
punches.
journey is definitely healthy.
Stick and
It's a
move.
healthy journey. Stick and move, man. Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's great. That's
So
great.
the other thing I was kind of curious to see, I'm kind of curious to see how you're landing on this whole thing that's going on right now, the virus thing, and how you're
Mm.
feeling about it. What if you've done any research yet?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research. I'm looking at the overall aggregate situation, right? This kind of reminds me, like, I think, what was it, like in the 40s? The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming during the nuclear
A
times,
Red
and
Scare,
the Red Scare, exactly, and everyone's freaking out. Or what they talked about in Project Bluebeam with the fake alien invasion.
right, right.
It's got the same effects, right? Different causes or whatever, but still, it's that fear-based mentality, and there's an agenda going on. Absolutely. Um, real big in germ theory versus terrain theory. So, you know, whether this shit's traveling in the air, or just barely contact from people, I don't know if I buy it, but I prepare for all situations. Um, so, and obviously mainstream media is just a bunch of bullshit. So there's, yeah, I was talking to someone and he kept spitting off what the mainstream was reporting. And it's like, dude, and he says, I know all the statistics. I'm getting all the information. I'm just like, no, you're not, man. If you're not looking at alternative sources, you're tunnel vision.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, there's what the ultimate agenda is. I'm not sure. It's obviously control. It seems like it's like the global reset. They want to go and wipe out the Constitution, like it has any validity, anyways. But
right.
it's
Since
their
the
way
Patriot Act,
to bring in the next phase of the world order, right? So
yeah, we know the globalist agenda is there. Nothing's changed there, right?
exactly. So, but seeing how people are reacting it's mind blowing.
It's
It,
really
it
scary, man.
it really
That's
is.
what I'm
Yeah.
having the hardest time with is that um, the point I've been trying to make because I'm I'm way I'm like you were saying I don't even necessarily buy the germ theory. I picked up this book right here. I was listening to that podcast. This is called "What Really Makes You Ill." Yeah,
I got my copy 2 days ago.
my man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yep. I looked it up.
you can see I've just gone through with the highlighter and taken notes, and I'm just like, I got to find ways to explain to people because my intuition was the first thing that hit me. My gut instinct is, okay, this is another 9/11 type situation, false flag situation, and before I even knew anything or did any research, and I don't watch any news. I haven't seen almost a single newsreel other than what I've seen on other podcasters' presentations.
Yeah.
And you could say that's unbalanced, but my point on that is I know for sure that those news agencies lied to me. Bold-faced lies. September 11th is a perfect example. On BBC, the woman saying, "Oh, the Solomon Building just fell down, and it's standing right here behind her." While she's saying that, obviously she's reading from
Yeah.
a script.
For
You know,
sure.
once you know that kind of thing's going on, why would you ever trust those people again?
Oh,
At
exactly.
all. Why even look at what they got to say? They're fucking liars.
Yep.
And I'm trying to make that point to people. And then the other point I'm trying to make is what happened to discourse? What happened to presenting the other side of things before we jump to conclusions? The first question I asked is, well, what's this test? How do we know the test is accurate? What are they actually doing in this test? What's being tested? How many things are being tested? And people look at me like I'm crazy for asking that. Like, no, this is the World Health Organization. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, the World Health Organization is a branch of the globalist agenda. I mean, of course they're going to
Yeah.
say what the globalists want. I mean,
The
that's
mind
ridiculous.
virus, it runs so deep, right? The belief in authority, and it's
That's
amazing
what it is.
how these fuckers say jump and everyone's like fighting to get in line to jump first. It really is. It's a shame. And
It's so deep
yeah,
that authority thing. I even see it in myself. Like I did, speaking of Facebook, I popped on just the other day and I saw some people on, I don't know if it was the one you run there, the Mark Passio or not, but it was people saying like, I wish I could hear from Mark Passio right now. Why doesn't he say something?
yeah,
And somebody else jumps on and says like, figure it out for yourself, basically. He's busy. And
yeah,
I feel myself thinking that too. Like I check his site almost every day to see if the next, but it's that part of me that needs an authority, that needs somebody, like a little bird. I'm looking for mama bird to tell me that I'm doing all right and what I'm talking about is correct. But
yeah,
he's just a man like the rest of us, you know. And so is Michael Tsarian. All these guys, they're just people. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And they might not even be right about everything. What Mark always says is, don't judge the man, judge the words that are being said, the content.
absolutely.
It,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Now we're old enough and smart enough to start letting go of this authority thing and recognize it in ourselves. It's been so embedded in our life that we're used to it, and it's hard to break away from it. It still pulls me in.
oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the conditioning, right?
For
And
sure. Yeah. I mean,
there's only one authority, and that's God, natural law, whatever you want to call it. That's the only authority. But we live in a crazy ass world, so I'm a real big prepper, and I always talk about this. You got to be prepared for any kind of situation, because as we see right now, shit's hitting the fan, and you got to be ready. You got to be ready.
But there's, the other side of that is you can only be so ready. Like, I think a lot of people right now, like myself, are like thinking about, man, I wish I had, I did make some preparations and I feel pretty good about a lot of things, but, and then I see other things like where I wish I'd have done this or wish I'd have got some more of that. But the truth is, you can't be ready for everything, but you can be aware and
Mm,
conscious. And if you're in those states, then you're going to be dealing with it a lot better than people. And if shit ever does like totally break down, which it may well be now, part of me is considering that this might just be, a steady um, situation where things are just getting gradually worse, but which is likely. Um, but ultimately, your best currency is your ability to get along with your neighbors and speak to people and communicate what's important and provide services. And I wanted to throw this out there too, because if there's people that are sitting home right now, not making any money, there's always ways to make a couple bucks.
sure.
There's neighbors that need stuff. There's places that need delivery drivers. There's ways to get out there and do stuff, but it takes breaking through that wall of fear and taking some courage and going, calling every restaurant. Do you need somebody to drive for you? Or
Yeah.
get online to your neighbors.com and be like, hey, I can provide a service of taking people's pets for a walk or something, or whatever it is you do, teach Spanish or something.
Yeah.
We might have to change the way we do things to adapt to this new situation. And it's going to take courage.
Oh, you nailed it, right? And that when I said opportunity, that's what I've been doing too. I've been talking to people in my community, right? It's like some person need an extension ladder. I got it. Um, I mowed someone's lawn, an elderly couple. They were scared to come
Nice.
out, so I mowed their lawn and stuff, and they gave me a little bit of food and stuff like that. So
Awesome.
it's
Here's some
and that's
toilet paper.
yeah, oh, sure, I'll take it. Fuck it. And that's the that's how currency should really be, right? It's
Yeah.
the bartering system. It's all about energy, exchange of energy. And but it's a good opportunity to talk and connect it with people as well. And if they're even coming out of their house, but still. But even in my neighborhood, I've been seeing a lot of people communicate. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's real good. I've been promoting that.
Yeah. Since this whole thing started, I've been just going about my business. I'm lucky in the way that I've been able to work every day pretty much. In fact, when it hit, we were on a family trip, a vacation. So we were all over the state already,
Oh,
and so I was
gotcha.
like, okay, I've already, way past this.
Yeah.
So I've noticed when I go into stores and restaurants and places I go, there's a lot of people wearing the masks, but there's also a lot of people that are kind of like me that are just like, they're just going to go about their business, and they're small. You can almost see the look on their face. They're kind of like not taking it
Yeah,
seriously.
for
And,
sure.
and a lot of people are going to say they're being irresponsible, but part of me knows that their gut feelings telling them that this is bullshit. And
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
It's
sure there's some people that just don't care too, solipsists, but
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's funny that, the state, everyone's, everyone's doing all these precautions and this uh strategic planning and stuff, and then they say the death toll numbers just keep going up and up and up. And so, you know, if they're going to do a martial law type of situation, I can see them doing that. This is definitely the
we're already
stepping
there,
stones to that. Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Yeah, it's
Like
almost
Corbett says, this is
self-induced.
medical martial law already.
Yeah,
James
right.
Corbett has a really good thing on that. If you haven't checked that out, it's good to see. But
Okay, yeah.
and what he points out too is like all the legislation for this situation has been built up over the last 7, 10, 15 years. And he's been pointing it out all along the way. They're drafting these papers of how we're going to deal with the pandemic. They're talking about how we're going to deal with the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of people already know about the event. Is it Event 201, right? Where they staged this whole thing a few months before it actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's a common pattern that we see, right?
Yep, every
Them
false
doing
flag.
exactly staging
They're doing
staging events.
exercises. Oh, where are all our fighter planes? Oh, they were doing war games.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how they operate, right? It's fucking orchestrated to the T.
And
And
that's the part that I
all in
think
place.
people really have that I talk to like on a day-to-day basis, like guys I chat with at work on break. they really like, they'll agree with me on a lot of stuff. Like when I start talking about September 11th, like they're onto that stuff. They're like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But what they really can't get is they don't want to believe that everything is orchestrated. Like from their point of view, it's like, how could that be? You know, government can't even run itself. Humans aren't that good at organizing. How could there be this super henchman in the sky who's, you know, handling all these facets and details? To them, because that seems inconceivable, they're not willing to consider that that possibility actually exists.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one to get past.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you know, imagination is dead in a lot of people on that aspect, and plus it's so deep. You can't do it in a sentence or just one conversation. You know, there's got to be work involved in breaking that down on what's really going on. And you know, the dark occultists that are think they're running shit is just a small minority compared to the actual numbers of the masses. So the real virus is in the mind of the people.
Right. It's us. And what they're doing for the most part, I think, is spinning things. You know, they can't completely, nobody, yeah, no group can completely control all this, you know, but
Exactly.
they can craft a really good freaking plan, and they got enough money and power to get that plan out to everybody. And then they see how people start reacting. They have all these tools like
Mhm.
Facebook that they can check and see how people are reacting, and then they spin it the way that they need to keep things going according to the plan, you know.
Yeah, it seems like a fucking reality show. The way, you know, what the news does, and even Facebook, like right when I sign on, it's like, you know, check out the interactive map of the virus spread. It's like, what the fuck? It's crazy. It's
Yeah, it's like
crazy.
too perfect, right? Who
Exactly.
it was like, it almost makes you wonder too, like all of a sudden all these commercials came out and all these advertisements, like some of these companies must be spending massive amounts of money on those Facebook ads, like these weird new real news agencies that are popping up. I'm really suspicious of them. They're like, every time I turn that on, their ads coming on. I know how Facebook ads work. You have to spend a shitload of money to get those ads out to that many people, and they're
Yeah.
catered to you. Your specific, you know, and have they been planning that? How did some of these companies, big companies, already? It's like they're prepared for this. They're like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's get on this.
Yeah. Whenever the government says look right, I'm looking left, up, and down. You know, it's so I'm
Stick and
trying
move.
to read between the lines of
Yeah,
shit that's going on. And yeah, it's but you know, this is different. You know,
it's a
it's
new
pretty
game.
intense. Yeah, it's a new game. It's a new
The
game.
game has moved to a new level. Let me put it that way.
Yep, for sure. And that's why, you know, we just got to promote people to you know, shields up, swords out, and get this message out. And you know, but just like 9/11, a lot of people woke up from the
Yeah,
event of
that's
9/11.
basically what got me here.
Yeah, definitely.
I
So
mean, day
it's
one when
another
9/11
opportunity.
happened, I remember watching it and thinking to myself, that's some kind of inside job. I mean, that obviously those planes didn't take that building. It was like super obvious to me right away. I mean,
Yeah.
I just couldn't ever stomach that what they were saying from the very first time I saw it. But
Yeah.
it took me like 10 years before I really looked into it and watched all the architects and engineers for 9/11 truth videos and read all the other theories, and then I got in so deep that there was no coming back. But it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, there's so much information even on 9/11, you know, proving that it's an inside job and it's a mass ritual, and people won't even look at that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's all about desire to change is how I see it. So, you know, someone that's going public and talking about this information, they might get to thousands of people, reach thousands of people, and you know, one, two people might listen and actually consider, you know, and I think that's worth it. So,
Hell yeah.
you know,
Hell yeah.
yeah,
And for yourself on your personal journey, I'll just say for me, like ever since I started um, stepping out a little bit more and pushing through some of those boundaries, all these wonderful things start happening. I've had some experiences that make my hair stand up on end, where I'm just at work on a roof hammering some nails, and the guy next to me starts talking about like some really intense emotional stuff that's going on in his life. And I have this moment where I'm able to be there for that person and just kind of minister in a way to that person. And they're thankful, like, I can't believe I talked to you about that. I never tell anybody about that. All these like weird little miracles and synchronicities have happened to me when I'm on the path
Oh,
to
absolutely.
having my mind focused on what really matters.
That's awesome. Yeah,
And
for sure.
it takes that courage to push through the wall of fear, to get there, and you start getting those. The universe starts sending you little signs.
Yeah, once you switch the polarities, right? You're in love, and that's the strongest force. And yeah, the doors start opening up when you start getting on your path, the correct path.
But there's also, I would say too, there's also the times where you're in the dark and you're feeling like you're working and working and you're not seeing a lot of that, and you're scared and feeling lonely. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now. And I hope that you and I doing something like this might help someone who's in that spot, and that's kind of why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do now with these presentations and this podcast. I think there's people who are on the fence or starting to realize, and they just need that extra push, you know, and
Yeah.
maybe we can inspire a couple other people, and then they can inspire a couple others.
Yeah, that's the whole point why I want to do it, because I know there's people on the fence, and it just takes that one video, that one conversation to throw them over the other side and get that ball rolling. So,
It makes me think of that. Um, what's the movie with the guy who has the time? He his hands get all screwed up in an accident, and he goes to see the gosh, it's bugging me that I'm blanking out on the name of it right now. He's one of the superhero movies, and he's sitting next to the master, and she shoves him and pops him right out of his body. You know,
oh, Doctor Strange.
there you go, that Doctor Strange moment. He's sitting there with the bald, master, and he's
Yeah,
not believing her. He's like, yeah, right, this is all a bunch of crap. And then she just boom, just pushes him right into this other reality. It's like, okay, now you're
yeah,
awake.
throws him right into like a DMT type trip.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's great. That's a good movie. It's a good flick.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, man. Where do you want to go now? That was a great little segment.
That's kind of the stuff I thought of. I took a bunch of notes about the virus stuff and all that, and that might wind up being a future conversation. But I'll just throw a couple things out I came across. I also watched this to kind of be a little more balanced. I watched like a lecture on virology,
Okay.
which was more of it was Columbia University, which I would say is more like the mainstream viewpoint. And even some of the things they say in there, I think maybe this will help people out with the fear aspect of this. Viruses are more abundant than anything else in the ocean. We're basically living in a cloud of billions of viruses. Our body is full of thousands of viruses. This is mainstream. This isn't alternative.
Got it.
Um, Most viruses just pass through us. There's specific viruses to certain plants and animals, and your body they just go right on through. We all have a dozen herpes viruses living in our body. Um, Viruses are passive agents. They have no goals. They don't have an attack plan. So a lot of the news headlines you see aren't even in line with the mainstream scientific scientism, which is they don't have metabolism. They're not mobile.
Yeah.
So a lot of things you're seeing, like the virus is attacking, the virus is invading, all these kind of statements are very bullshitty,
Oh, for
even
sure.
even from the most mainstream point of view.
Yeah, I saw a headline. It said, um, "America on the front lines of an invisible enemy."
Yeah,
It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, yeah. Even what you just said right there. It's what, and that goes back to authority. People will believe anything as long as they feel like somebody has some authority.
yeah.
So you got a lab coat on. They can tell you whatever the fuck they want, and the majority of people will follow. Get right in line.
And another good detail where I kind of stumped some guys at work the other day because they were kind of like getting on my case because I'm basically saying, the germ theory is a theory, it's not even proven. And they're like, you're saying there's no such thing as a virus. I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily do what they're saying it does.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then I said, okay, think about this. This test they're giving, it has no quantitative value. So in other words, if you got a positive test that says you have this virus, that just says they found one little bit of it. It doesn't mean there's three. There could be 300. There could be 3,000.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. They're
So,
looking for like one protein that almost everyone's going to have, and
and it
boom,
might
you
be
got it.
something that we all have anyway, which I think is probably the case.
Exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't go to anything and let them do a test on me. Fuck that. I don't even like going to hospitals.
I avoid
So,
it, at all costs. And
yep.
I mean, I'd say that's kind of my biggest concern right now. I don't want to get into a physical battle, but that's where I draw the line. Nobody's sticking me with anything, and no one's going to make me wear a mask. If somebody tries to tell me I have to put something on my body or I have to put something inside my body, in theory, I'm willing to fight to the death on that point. And
Yeah.
we'll see if my courage really is what I think it is. But that's where I stand and
I
from a
agree with
logical
that.
point of view, and we might be coming
Absolutely.
to that point. It might get to the point now where I can't get on a plane anymore because I'm not willing to take some test or something,
Yeah, for sure.
and then I won't
Yeah.
be able to travel.
Yeah, and that inner psychopath that Mark talks about, that's got to be active and ready at any time, cuz you never know when all of a sudden you're in a situation and they're trying to force something upon you or violate you, and you need to act. Those are crazy thoughts, but very realistic.
I feel my heart beating strong almost every time I go out these days because the interactions in public are so fucking weird right now that what people are doing, I'm just, if someone says the wrong thing, I'm feeling like, okay, am I going to react?
Yeah,
Trying to calm myself down and be like, I'm going to try to take it from, and that's why I'm doing the studying and coming up with things to say and a good understanding of my point of view so that if someone does say, why aren't you wearing a mask? I'll be able to say calmly, well, sir, my understanding of the situation doesn't require that, or
absolutely.
however I reply is going to be a calm, metered response that's logical, so I can not come off like a crazy person.
Yeah, for sure. I going back in my younger days, I just had such a hot mouth against like cops and stuff, and even regular people, depending on what the topic was. But composure during this time is definitely key, and truth. Real quick before we close it up, hold that book up again.
Oh yeah, what really
Uh,
makes you ill?
yeah,
Don
I just
Lester,
started.
David Parker.
Don Lester and David Parker. Yep. What really makes you ill? Why
Yeah,
everything
it's
you know about disease is wrong.
the chapter 3 is called the germ theory, a deadly fallacy, and it's all about viruses mostly, but there's a whole chapter on vaccinations, there's a whole chapter on bacteria, and it's well cited. If you look in the back of the book, like there's pages and pages of citations from doctors, scientific journals, and
Yep.
I think that kind of thing helps, when you're trying to make a valid point with someone like, hey, how much research have you done? How much time have you spent looking into this? I have a bunch of research I've done. I can easily say I put in 12, 15 hours already on this subject, which isn't, I'm no expert. I'm just a regular guy. I didn't know shit about virology, but I know a hell of a lot more than the average person I talk to,
Yeah,
you know?
that's great. That's great. People need to look into that too. Um, the fallacies of Pasteur, right? He wasn't even a doctor, but that came up
Chemist.
with he was a chemist, exactly. Came up with germ theory. It's so bullshit. That book is excellent. So anybody listening, I highly recommend checking that out. They have the Kindle version as well, and it's well sourced. And
I'd check out too David Icke. He's doing some good work
yeah,
on this subject, and I'd check out. There's a guy called Dr. Kaufman.
Andrew Kaufman,
Yeah, and then Dr. Bruce Lipton,
of
the
course.
epigenetics guy.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
you start looking around on YouTube. There's quite a few people that are talking about these subject matters, And I go for real people, people that are willing to show their face. I have a couple things that I use for discernment. Number one, if someone's willing to put their name and their face in front of what they're saying, that gives them an extra element of trust and truth, in my point of view. Number two, if they're willing to talk about some of the harder subjects, back when I got onto Mark Passio, if a podcaster wouldn't talk about geoengineering or chemtrails at all, I pretty much wouldn't completely believe him.
Yeah.
And whenever I heard him bring up that subject, I'm like, all right, I'm on this guy. You know, that was one of the
Yeah.
hardest subjects back then in 2011, 2012. And then another way of discernment is time. If you've watched someone over time and the things they're saying um, are hitting you in a way that you're like, this guy's not trying to cheat me or trick me, you keep coming back to the same people, actual individuals, then you actually have some kind of news feed. I don't watch the news at all, but I get all my information through
Mm,
people that I trust. I've had a lot of podcasters I've followed for a long time, and I trust them to different relative values. You know, I look at them for
absolutely.
different things. So
Oh, that's great. You brought that up, man. That's so important too. Is people have to question where they get their information from and their
don't
source
trust
of
liars.
information. Yeah, and don't trust liars, man. So if you watch somebody long enough, you can pick up patterns and
Are they trying to sell you something? Are they making money off this? That's a
e-
good question too. Another discernment
exactly. Yeah,
practice.
liars and fakes, they stand out quick. So, but people got to stop taking the quick news bites, the flash bites of information and running with it. So
Scientism.
scientism, man. It's a belief, a religion.
Yep, it's the crisis of perception.
It's true. Absolutely, man. Well,
But
Chris,
yeah,
we
thanks so
got an
much, man.
hour, and I wanted to keep it an hour. That's awesome, man. That was a great talk, and
Awesome.
let's do this again soon, man.
Yeah, yeah. So you were able to record this, huh?
Yeah, got it recorded. Yeah,
Sweet.
I'll send you the copy, and then we can post it on the group, and it's awesome,
Great.
man. You wanna shout out your YouTube channel?
Yeah. Just look up Chris Jantzen with the Z, Jantzen, and I've been working on this series called End Evil, and I just this morning put the fifth part four episode on there, and it's all the work I've been doing over the last few years, you know. So yeah, check it out, and I'll post that on the feed there too.
Awesome, man. Yeah, your videos are great. I like the formula you're using and the style and stuff. It's hitting home perfect, man. Good job.
Thank you. I really appreciate your support on that. It's really helping me.
Yeah, no doubt, brother. Good chat, man. I'll talk
All
to you
right.
soon, and we'll do this again for sure.
Yep. Sounds like a plan. We'll be in
All right, brother.
touch.
Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Have a good one. You too.
See ya later.